When people ask me about prison chaplaincy, they often ask, am I afraid? Are you afraid to go into the prison? Are you afraid to be around the prisoners? Are there officers around? Um, etc. And my answer really is that the protocols, the processes, the system, that is the safety. If you follow the instructions, you follow the security instructions, you follow the practices that you're asked to use, then that is what provides safety. It's like that kind of general safeguarding approach. You're just taking precautions all the time. You're being sensible. You're following instructions, which doesn't come easy sometimes to Quakers. So I would say I'm not afraid. I think the first 6 months or so of going in can be anxiety provoking, perhaps, or nerve-wracking was the old word. Um, and I suppose you're on edge for the first 6 months. You're not quite sure of all sorts of things. You're not quite sure of what's happening, what noises are, what sounds are. Those people shouting. Is it a problem? That alarm going off? What does that mean? And gradually you get attuned to all of that and you realize they're just fairly ordinary sounds, actually. There's nothing to be alarmed about. And when something unusual happens, then you kind of, you learn after maybe 6 months or so of regularly going in. So I suppose the point is that within the chapel environment, it's the chaplain who has that responsibility, if you like, to guide not just the prisoners who are there, but the volunteers who are there as well, as to what the right process is. But ultimately, this is a spiritual task, isn't it? And I remember speaking to a very new chaplain once, and she was speaking to me at some length about what would keep her safe. And ultimately, I said to her, you need to pray, you need to be in that zone where you're in touch with a power beyond ourselves. And that if you can hold that space, that is what will protect you in some respects, certainly spiritually. But it comes down in the end to protocols and processes. And I do remember once um, a man who I knew fairly well. He'd been coming to the group for some time, and I was just calling in to see him at his cell. And I hadn't locked the door. You kind of lock the door open so that you can't be taken hostage, is the main process. And I hadn't done that. And an officer did it for me. He came past and he kind of did that action. And it just makes me think, sometimes you're caught off guard and you don't follow a process, or you're not concentrating, or you're distracted by something. And it's perhaps just a becoming an over familiar with a particular prisoner, which is where you can become a cropper, as they say. You just overlook in a dynamic way what the actual risks of the situation is. So that's really how you manage your fears. You get into a rhythm, you become acclimatized to the prison system, and you're taking instructions, you're following orders, you're keeping everyone informed. I'm going to see this person, I'm going to see that person, and very publicly, uh, visible to everybody. And then those are the things that stop you from being afraid because you know you're part of a team. Because ultimately, you can't make an assessment on each individual prisoner's risk. One of the main risks I would say is a medical issue, or like a psychotic episode of some kind, where a person that you think you know is not perhaps in the right frame of mind. And you could be at risk then, depending on how you play that situation. So falling back onto the protocols and the processes and taking advice and guidance and instruction from the officers, knowing that they will have your back. That is why we go into these situations, is because we have a system and a team of people who are looking out for each other. So as long as you're able to take that advice, then we manage these risks and we hope that God is with us.